talking about bathing the baby and picking up the baby. You have a wet baby, and you know the newborns in the beginning, they don't like their baths, they cry. Later on they enjoy their baths, but in the beginning they don't really know what's going on, and they feel chilly, and they have to, you know, they're fussing and they're thrashing around and they're slippery, and it can be difficult. Okay, so that's definitely a safety issue. There's two very important things. Of course, you don't shake the baby, but what else is like really bad is dropping a baby. Okay, so you don't worry so much about supporting the head and neck. You just move slowly when you have the baby. Okay, so you're moving slowly. Some people are almost dropping the baby because they're so worried about supporting the head and the neck. If you are really got a good hold of the baby, especially when they're wet and they're thrashing around and screaming, that's the most important thing. Just move slowly. Okay. So when you're picking up this naked, wet baby, you have to have a good hold of them, okay? And a lot of times it's just, you got that joint, okay? You have the baby's shoulder, and your hand is got a real good hold of that arm and shoulder. And sometimes the babies are small enough, your hand's big enough that you can actually support the head and neck. But don't worry about it. You got a good hold of the baby, and you got their hip and their leg and their little butt, okay? So you're not like picking the baby up like by the arm and leg, right? Got a good hold of them. It might look sort of, you know, haphazard that, you know, sometimes the nurses are so good at it, they're moving real quick and you're like, oh my God, they're manhandling that baby, what are they doing in there? But they're just so good at it that it looks, you know, like they're moving too quickly and what are they doing? But you always have to have a good hold of that baby. Now, you know, swaddling is not absolutely necessary. The babies like it in the beginning because why? Because in the womb, they're in this small space in this fetal position and they feel safe. Okay, so sometimes they like to be swaddled when they're in a fussy mood, okay, and they're that active time of day when it's hard for them to settle down, and they really are tired, but they need to have less stimulation, so you would swaddle them and maybe turn the lights down. You can hold them, or sometimes they just really want to be in the crib. They just want to be quiet, turn the lights down, like, you know, less stimulation. So there's different ways to swaddle. These blankets aren't stretchy, and they've been washed a lot. They're shrunken a bit. This is a small doll, so it's easier, depending upon how big your baby is. This is just one way. Okay, so you have the baby on the rectangle here, and you can swaddle the hands in or out, depending upon what your baby likes. Babies have their hands like this in the womb, right? They're always sucking on their hands, and they like their hands. So, but then the dilemma is, what do they start scratching themselves? Have your babies scratched themselves at all? So the nails. Yeah, and the nails are soft. I know, it's like they're doing that rugby eye gouge thing, right? And but the nails are still, it seems like they're soft, but when they come out of the womb, they're dry a bit, and then they start scratching themselves. But they like their hands. So you see what you can do. We can file the nails. And maybe you let them have one hand. See what they like. So you can swaddle them with their hands in. So you start up at one corner. We can demonstrate, you know, in the room with the live baby. But you bring the blanket down to the hip. Okay. So you're going to be bringing it down nice and tightly under the butt. Okay. And then on this type, you're going to take the same side. Only down here, and this side goes up, and this one goes under the shoulder, okay? It's going to go under the shoulder, nice and tightly, okay? And then you're up here, and you're going to bring it down, and under the butt, and this side up, okay? I should get some more blankets in here. We actually have some, before you go, everyone's going to take a hat, but we have also some blankets that the grandma's knitted. So, another way, you can double swaddle them also. Another way to swaddle is many different ways. You can do lengthwise. So you have the stripes going down, all right? And you can start like this. And basically what you're doing is you're bringing the blanket around and tucking it under, okay? Tucking it under like that. Nice and tightly, and then you have like this tail. This you can bring up, and if you have enough room, get them to bring their legs up into that fetal position, And then you can even make like a cuff usually if you have enough room, depending upon how big the baby is, okay? And then you hug the baby and you bring this around like that, okay? So, and you can double swaddle too. But you don't have to swaddle them for that long, as long as they like it, and only certain times a day. And some people like keep swaddling them, and then they never walk. But you don't have to swaddle them, you can use the cheater ones too. They have the ones with the Velcro. Some people will do this, and then they'll put the Velcro one. Do you have it here? We don't have it here, but you bring it up and you put the Velcro. If you're not good at it, what's going to happen? They're going to come out of their blanket, they're going to be chilly, and they're going to have all these blankets in their face. So that's another safety thing. You're going to always have the baby sleeping on their backs, and you're not going to have all this stuff in the crib that they could maybe smother, right? Stuffed animals, blankets, all this stuff, okay? And they do not have to be swaddled, but they need to be warm, okay, and safe in the crib. So you can have all different kinds of sleepers, outfits, and you just layer your way. And you can continue, you're going to have the baby sitting up, you can have the baby sitting on your lap. You can just simply go like this to birth the baby. The babies usually, there's just like a reflex, they always put their face forward like this, but then they'll turn it sideways. Even if you put them on your tummy, on their tummy, they'll still do that, and then they'll turn their head sideways. So burping, slightly tilted back like this, or you can sit them up, and you're going to hold their head and neck like this. You don't want them like this, you're going to hold their head and neck. Sometimes they can be to the side a little bit, like this, rubbing, patting, holding that baby, picking up that baby, carrying the baby. There's all different ways to hold the baby, swaddled or not, and sometimes you can do this kind of a thing, still supporting the head and the neck, right? Holding the baby. Baby's just fussy, you're walking around, you got a free hand. You get good at it, right? Or like this, sometimes this baby's stiff. You can bring your hand up between the legs even. Out like this, like a little football, right? Like this. All right, as long as the baby's well supported, okay? They're going to be very unhappy if you feel like, you know, they feel like they might fall. You have to be careful too, because you could be holding your baby and they have these big heads lots of times, especially as they get older. Big heads, and they can throw themselves back. And like in this little room, it's difficult to get rest because you might have a fussy baby and you're in this little room. And but when you go home, you'll have more than one room, obviously. So maybe it's the mom's time to sleep. Baby's been fed, and mom's sleeping, and maybe dad or someone else, maybe dad's sleeping too, that's good. Someone else is in the room with the baby, a different room with the baby. The baby's been fed, changed, and doesn't want to socialize. It's just being fussy, but isn't ready to sleep. And you might have the portable crib in the other part of the room, and that other person, support person, is holding the baby, trying to get the baby to calm down, and then that support person gets sleepy, right? And whether the baby's ready to go into the crib or not, if you're falling asleep, that's not safe. So you put the baby on your back safely in that little portable crib, and you're laying on the couch, and you know, you're sort of looking at the clocks, the time to feed the baby or whatever. And you get through these early days when the babies are so fussy. And you know, babies are high maintenance in the beginning, okay? It's very doable and it's very much worth it, but it's a lot of work, right? So you just prepare yourself, and anyone that's caring for your baby, you know, you want to talk to them about very important safety tips. And some of them are about not shaking the baby thing, okay? Having the baby sleep in on the back, a lot of these things. How about tummy time? All of us were sleeping on our tummies, right? When we were babies, right? Everybody was sleeping on their tummies, right? We all survived, but...
They keep changing.
Well...
First, one time they say, put them on their stomach. Then all of a sudden change to put them on their back.
Well, the thing is, I think in different parts of the world, they had them on their backs. And there was they had less of that sudden infant death. So we started looking at it and saying, okay, well, we don't know what it is, but I think it was us in Australia were on our tummies. They had all those big sheepskin things they used to have. And they'd say, okay, let's start putting everybody on their backs. And then what happened? Then what was the new problem that they found? The babies weren't getting enough activity. They weren't sitting as soon, they weren't walking as soon. You know, they eventually caught up, but they were on their backs, they weren't using those muscles. Okay? There was less of a SIDS rate.
And if they spit up, it went all over their.
Well, there was still well, when they're on their backs, we found that this said was now we gotta make sure we give them time on their tummy as a supervised wakeful activity. You just put them on their tummy. You can do it right away, but you can't have all stuff there, and it's gotta be supervised. You know, I'm sleeping, and they're on their tummies, and you'll be so surprised. You can do it right away, right in the crib. Take the you don't have all these blankets, unswaddled, warm enough, unswaddled. They'll lift their head, they'll bring their knees up. I've seen newborns actually roll over. So that's another thing you can do during that wakeful time. Be proactive, let them get some energy out. They're not going to just be happy and quiet all the time. You know, they're awake, they don't necessarily want to be quiet, all the time. They want to be active, and that's a good time to do it. Get some energy out. Supervised tummy time, okay? And the thing about not sleeping with the babies, that's a concern in that the babies could smother. And we have a higher SIDS rate, and a lot of it happens with the sleeping with the baby thing.